to the 2018 season for the Jaguares. I think overall, if you're looking at the previous two seasons for the Jaguares in Super Rugby, you'd have to say this season was a marked improvement. They finished with a record of 9 wins and 6 losses, which was good enough for 7th spot on the table. First time the Jaguares have made the playoffs. Didn't get any further than that first quarter final, but still, it was an easily positive record. It's a playoff appearance. It's kind of what we've been expecting since year one from the Jaguares, kind of finally paying off. And I think, overall, pretty positive season. In terms of the good, new coach Mario Ledesma obviously had his own kind of plans for the team to try and clean up some areas, improve some areas, and they were good at building phases. They were the number one team in Super Rugby for building 7 or more phases per game. Guido Petty, or Guido, I always get his pronunciation incorrect, number 4 in terms of the opposition line-out, and Guido is a big part of that. The Jaguares were 4th overall at winning opposition line-out ball. 6th for run meters, 6th for pick and drives, 14th for run meters conceded. So, I mean, that defense, which had been a bit leaky in Super Rugby in previous seasons, kind of tightened it up. There were still times when it was loose, but overall much improved. 14th advantage line conceded. 4th overall for winning penalties. So they were getting the other teams to concede penalties. However, on the flip side of that, 4th overall for conceding penalties. So kind of with one step forward, there was still another step in the other direction, so kind of maybe that counts as improvement from last year. They were the number one team at forcing penalties at ruck and maul time, and they were 11th in yellow cards, which I think just in terms of discipline is an improvement. So yeah, overall you'd have to say there's a lot of good things there from the Jaguares. They cut out the silly offloads in the previous seasons, still had a bit of that, but kind of in a controlled fashion, building phases. There were issues. I'll get on to the bad. So in terms of points, average points per game, they were 14th. So whilst that defense tightened up, there were issues sometimes in scoring points. They were 13th at getting over the advantage line themselves. So whilst I said they can build 7 or more phases, and they weren't conceding ground that often, a lot of times when they had the ball, building 7 phases, that doesn't mean it is necessarily going in the right direction. 14th overall for kick meters, so I guess they were trying to run the ball a bit more than kick it, which kind of makes sense. 10th for tries, so yeah, again, kind of not cutting teams to bits. But then again, also they were 10th for points conceded, so kind of, at the lower end of the scale. So whilst they weren't scoring that many points, they were also not conceding that many. So I guess that kind of balances out in terms of where they finished on the table. Individuals, obviously, Boffelli and Delgui both had 10 try seasons, which is great news. So a lot of when they were scoring tries, it was going through those guys who really came along nicely. Boffelli had a big boot from time to time. His overall kicking stats weren't that spectacular. Sanchez overall, for his kicking stats were okay without being anything exceptional. But there were some good individuals there. Another couple of sour points, I guess, is when they lost the game, they never got within 7. They always lost by more than 7. There was, I think, one game where they lost by 8, but generally, if they were losing, it was not in it at the end, and there was no losing bonus point, which overall in the table perhaps could have made things a bit better if they'd managed to get a bit closer in some of those games. Their home record and away record were kind of a mixed bag. There's not like a clear advantage here for them, home or away. At home, they were 5 out of 8, and away they were 4 out of 8. So happy to win at home, but also happy to concede, and then happy to win on the road, but then sometimes not. So yeah, there's not like a real clear pattern there. I should mention that 2 of their away wins were in Australia, 2 of their away wins were in New Zealand. None of their away wins were in South Africa. And they play more away games in South Africa than anywhere else. Not able to get any away wins. And that includes a quarterfinal, so 5 shots at getting a win in South Africa this season. Not able to get the job done. I think it's 5. Yes, it is 5. Highlights of the season, obviously they had a 7-match winning run in terms of highlights. So they had a home win and they went on a tour and got 4 wins. Like I said, there's 2 in Australia, 2 in New Zealand. And then they went back home and won comfortably over the South African teams that came to visit them. So it was a great run. I mean, I should mention in that away run, I mean, 23-19 against the Chiefs, they weren't really given a chance, even by some of the commenters on this channel. I remember some of the Jaguares fans not being very confident ahead of that game. I mean, fair enough, Hamilton's a tough place to go, if it was Hamilton. Either way, it was the Chiefs' country. Managed to win that one 23-19. When they went back home, they beat the Bulls 54-24 and were just riding high. There was looking like there was no stopping the Jaguares, but then they headed to South Africa and lost to the Bulls 43-34, lost to the Sharks 20 points to 10, playing kind of their B team, and then the start of the season also was a bit of a slow start. And there was one game in particular, they lost to the Reds at home, 18 points to 7. That was a real stinker of a game. It was a really, really hard game to watch. It sticks out in my mind anyway as possibly the worst game of rugby I watched in this Super Rugby season. It was a real bad game. Obviously, I didn't watch all the games, but that one really sticks out in my mind as a really poor game. But I mean, overall, there were some very exciting games for the Jaguares this season. When you look to next season, there's going to be a few changes. Obviously, Mario Ledesma has left the Jaguares to take charge of the Pumas, the national team, which kind of makes sense. The Pumas in June were really bad, so the coach resigned. Mario Ledesma doing a good job with the same players, has stepped up for Argentina, so hopefully he can do well there. So they got Quesada, who's come back from a long stint in France as a player and as a coach, so hopefully he can kind of continue those foundations which have been set by Ledesma. They are losing Sanchez, who, I mean, he is just the out-and-out number 1 fly half for the Jaguares. I'm not sure who will be in that role next season. I know Boffelli can play there, perhaps somebody else, but it's going to be a big question. Jaguares fans can give me their insights on who they think will take that job, but it'll very big shoes to fill, like the playmaker for the whole team, and he's definitely going to be gone. But, I mean, in terms of good news, Boffelli, Delgui, Matera, Otego Desio, Petty, all these guys who had very good seasons are all back for next year, so that's great. There's still questions about guys like Crevi, Montoya, Bertrano, but also the question about, I mean, I haven't read recently if there's been any changes, but there has been talk about the Pumas selection policy, allowing overseas players to be chosen. Currently, I believe it is still only Jaguares players who can be picked for the Pumas. So if that changes, that could make some of these contracts for next year a bit more interesting. Hopefully, we still get a very strong and competitive Jaguares team like this year. Hopefully, they can take it that step further, perhaps get a few more bonus points in when they are losing. Get a slightly stronger home record. The travel is always going to be a factor with the Jaguares. It's always going to be a disadvantage. But, yeah, a lot of teams are going to have to travel to face them, which kind of, I mean, it doesn't totally balance it out, but it does give them that slight touch in some games. But, yeah, there's plenty to be optimistic about. I'm hoping next season will likewise be a successful one. But, yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on how you thought the Jaguares went this season, where they can potentially go next season. And, yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.